Good afternoon, everybody. Today we have the privilege of hearing from Jaime van Leeuwen. I've known Jaime from way back when, at the time that he won an award for Urban Peak for the work that he's done with the youth on the streets of Denver. Homelessness is truly a serious issue in any community. And it's a scary thing when you think that we are one serious illness or one job loss away from pretty much being on the street, and how to avoid that and how to help those people get back on their feet and become a productive member of our community. It's one of the challenges that the mayor took on and promised to end homelessness in 10 years. And he couldn't find a better person to do that job than Jaime van Leeuwen. His credentials were in the keyway, and I don't want to take much of his time away from his presentation. I just wish that Jaime came today to talk to us about his fabulous 6-week trip to Africa. He took 20 DU students to help work in the slums and was it in Rwanda? In Rwanda. And then backpacked through Uganda and Kenya and other parts of Africa for 4 more weeks, and has some unbelievable stories from that trip. Maybe we should invite him back to show us some slides or whatever from that. But let's welcome Jaime to the podium, please.
All right, let's see here. There we go. All right. Thank you, Andre, for the very gracious introduction. And this is my first luncheon being back from Africa. And so I'll try to be well-mannered and appropriate every step of the way, and as I reintegrate into the world once again. I am very, very honored to be here. I want to thank President Thornton for inviting me to be a speaker today on an issue that's very near and dear to my heart, but also people like Andre Van Hall, who have been unbelievable friends of the Homeless Initiative. I look around the room today and I see Peter Bose, I see Rabbi Foster, and I see the Denver Foundation and Bar Burv represented, and there's a number of friends of the initiative that are sitting around us who have been advocates to really get us to where we are today. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. It's an interesting time to be talking about homelessness. That 4 years ago we talked about what it would look like for us to take a plan and to take something that seemed to kind of be a little bit outrageous, the idea of ending homelessness and putting it into implementation. 4 years later, we're talking about not just what the plan looks like, but the impact that issues like the economy has in terms of what it takes to end homelessness. I've been tag teaming with the mayor today. He's actually over at Trinity Methodist Church, meeting with a group of clergy council to engage them in mentoring families out of homelessness. And I will tell you that the one thing that has not changed in the city and county of Denver in the last 4 years since this initiative began is the mayor's commitment to seeing this through and to making sure that we continue to create enough housing and enough services to ensure that every man, woman, and child has an alternative to the streets. And so I'm going to give you a quarter tour of the initiative so folks have a sense of what that looks like. And then I want to make sure that we leave enough time for questions and answers, because I do think that there are plenty of those to go around as well. And so, I want to begin in the sense that Denver's Road Home really owes its existence to Mayor Hickenlooper, who I think very highly of, not just because he's my boss, but is an extraordinary steward of the poor. And when he invited me to join his administration almost 5 years ago, I had spent about 8 years working at Urban Peak, working with homeless and runaway youth, which is where I met Andre. And we knew that it was possible to get a homeless youth off of the streets from downtown and put them in the housing. And we'd shown through our partnership with the Downtown Denver Partnership and the business community and the police department that you could actually do that. And then along came the mayor, and he said, well, I don't want to just move a person or two off the streets. I really want to end homelessness in 10 years. And he invited me to join the administration. When I was appointed to join the mayor's team, my friends had a great time with it. End homelessness in 10 years, they said. So that means in 10 years, if we find a homeless person, then you'll be fired. And ending homelessness in 10 years is getting us to rethink about an issue, and I want to talk a little bit about what the mayor really means when he says that. And when he looked at the situation in the city, he said that we've got to get smarter and we got to think differently about this issue. And I talk when one of my students is actually in the room right now, and so she can hold me accountable. But I talk about the fact that we live in a world that is shifting rapidly, and we live in a world where if you're one in a million in China, there are 1,300 just like you, and shift is happening. I say that very carefully. Shift is happening, and in Denver, the mayor said that we can make shift happen here. That we can look at how we've done things, and let's realign it, and let's look at everything that we've done in the past. Let's learn from what worked and what didn't work, and then let's do it differently. And what Denver's Road Home was a refreshing, different approach to ending homelessness. It was a call to action of the Denver community and involved partnerships with the public, private, nonprofit sector. And it was a plan that was rooted in accountability. The mayor said that this is not business as usual, that you should hold us accountable, and that as we put together this plan with 8 measurable goals, objectives, and outcomes, each year the community should look at this and see if it's working. And if it's not working, you should hold us accountable. The mayor said that in the first 5 years, I don't want to just come back to the community and say, oh, we've moved some families into housing, and we're doing a nice job, and we've got some good stories. The mayor said, I want to have in the first 5 years, I want to see a 75% reduction in chronic homelessness. That I want to look and I want to see what is it going to take for us, how many units of housing, how many new jobs do we need to create, how many new services do we need to attach to that, mental health, substance abuse, and medical services, to this plan to make sure that when we look at our homeless population in the community, every man, woman, and child has access to the services that they need to live life off the streets. And so what began 5 years ago was a community process. It involved over 350 volunteers from the community. He appointed a 41-member commission. And that 41-member commission included leaders from the private sector. It included public sector leaders. It included a number of our city council representatives. And it included our homeless providers, a lot of our CEOs of homeless providers that you are familiar with, the Denver Rescue Mission, the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, Urban Peak. And in addition to that, the mayor said if you're going to end homelessness, it's got to be an inclusive process. It's got to be a community process. And if you really want to end homelessness, we've got to bring the homeless to the table. And so we appointed 6 men, women, and youth to join the Homeless Commission. And their task was to, over the course of about 18 months, really create 8 measurable goals, objectives, and outcomes, to research and understand first who our homeless are, and then what was it going to take to end it. And the mayor got his vision. He went to the U.S. Conference of Mayors at the beginning of his administration, and mayors around the country were seeing the issue of homelessness impacting cities everywhere from New York to San Francisco. And what people saw is that each year we were spending more and more money on our homeless, and each year, every city around the country was getting more and more homeless people. And the math didn't add up. It didn't make sense. The more money you spend on homeless, the more homeless people you get. And the mayor said, we got to relook at this issue. We got to understand it better. And before we spend any money, before we do anything differently, let's really understand what this population looks like. And in understanding what the population looked like, we really started to see a different face of who our homeless are. That stereotypical face of homeless. When I say homeless person, what is the first thing that comes to mind? A little audience participation. What is the first visual that comes to mind? Male. What? Huh? A bum? Older or younger? Older. What do they look like physically? Beat up. Beat up. What else? Drunk. They're holding what in one hand? They have a cardboard sign in one hand. They have a bottle in the other. They sit on the side of the street. They're lazy, and they push what? A shopping cart. That is our perception of who the homeless are. And when we started doing this 5 years ago, that is what the community overwhelmingly saw. It's still what the community is that we have burned in our minds, is that that's who the homeless person is. A drunk, lazy guy sitting on the side of the street pushing a shopping cart. That does not evoke a community to want to fix something. That evokes a community to say, what is he doing there? Why doesn't he get a job? And what we found is that the faces of homelessness were a lot different than what that stereotype said. That in 2005, we know from our data that the homeless population, we had approximately 5,000 homeless men, women, and children in our community in 2005. That if you went outside of the city and county of Denver into Lakewood, Aurora, or Arvada, that number went up to about 11,000. And the faces of the homeless were a lot different than that shopping cart guy. The shopping cart guy is our chronically homeless individual, and he becomes very important in the equation, and I'll talk a little bit about him because he's about 10 to 15% of the population. The rest of our homeless look different. The rest of our homeless had a face that started to change the impression of the community in terms of our proclivity to act on this issue. 60% of our homeless in 2005 were women and children. That when we started to dig deeper in that notion of laziness and not wanting a job, that we found that 46% of our homeless were working, that they were trying to do something, that we tend to look at